When you're paying for sites, they can typically cost anywhere from $15 to around $50, and if we average that, that's about $32.50 a night. If you multiply that by 30 for each month, that means you'd be paying $975 in van life rent each month. So if you want to avoid paying a cent, go ahead and watch this whole video, and I'm going to give you all the tips and tricks I've found from my years on the road. Good morning from the top of my van in a free campsite near Grand Tetons National Park. Whether you're trying to van life on a budget or if you recently found yourself needing to live out of your vehicle for an extended period of time, safe and free camping does exist. You just need the strategies to find them. So I'm hoping this video will empower you to do that. I'm going to split it into 3 categories. The first category is urban camping, second category is dispersed land camping, and the third category is kind of just other unique options that I've found for places to stay on the road that don't really fit into either of those categories. So let's go ahead and start with urban camping tips. Typically when you're urban camping, the motive is to stay close to amenities and phone service that you wouldn't otherwise have at most dispersed land camping areas. So glamour is not the goal is functionality and convenience. Of course, everyone always mentions the typical classic Walmart parking lot, but I want to give you a longer list of options, places that it's usually okay to park and stay in for the night if you're in an urban setting. I do want to put it out there that there are exceptions to the rules, so always be looking at signs, try and call ahead when you can, and always have a backup plan. If you don't see no camping signs, you are probably safe to camp at Cracker Barrel lots, Sam's Club, or Costco. Cabela's or Bass Pro parking lots, I've taken advantage of a lot of these, and they can be pretty scenic if you're in certain areas, so definitely look out for those. Plus there's access to a public restroom in the morning if you don't have one in your vehicle. Another option is casino parking lots. This is usually only an option for 1 to 2 days, and they do kind of keep track of how much you're gambling or using their facility. They have you come into the casino and register with them, and it basically goes, the people who spend more money can stay longer, and the people who are just there for a free night get a free night, and that's about it. I'm not much of a gambler, so I try to just go in and maybe buy a snack or a drink or something like that, just because I am in that lot and their hope is that you will purchase something. A pro about casino lots is they often have really good lighting and security, so this was a really good option for me when I was traveling solo. It felt very safe and secure, unlike some of the Walmart lots and things that I had stayed in. Home Depot, Lowe's, Menards, a lot of those have options for overnight camping. Camping World, some 24-hour fitness locations. Hotel lots are a last resort option for me, but I have used them before as a stealth option if I've been absolutely desperate. The reason it's a last minute option for me is because hotels aren't explicitly opening their lots to boondocking, but if it's like midnight, I can't find anywhere to go, I do know in the back of my head that cars are changing all the time 24/7 at hotels. A lot of them don't keep track of which ones are their guests and which ones aren't. So like I said, that's somewhere I would go and camp for a night, get there late, leave very early, try to be very stealthy, very discreet. I will say in bigger cities where parking is very limited, those hotels are probably going to be tracking what vehicles are on their lot. And I feel the same way about movie theaters. They're not explicitly offering their parking lots to boondockers or van lifers or vehicle livers, but if you are really desperate, usually you can get away with that, especially if it's a 24/7 movie theater. Now, some more detail on what I was talking about earlier with the ethics on parking lot camping. I'm saying camping, but keep in mind, this is not a camping spot. This is a parking lot. Obvious ways to not abuse it is don't leave trash behind, don't leave dog poop behind, don't set up chairs or cooking sets outside in the parking lot. Like I said, this is not your campsite, this is a parking spot. If you do have a cooking setup that needs to be set up outside of your van, go and do it at a park or some other public street, then pack it up and then go to your camping destination. But like I said, this is not the spot where you can sprawl out all of your stuff or play super loud music. You're allowed to exist there, but you shouldn't be intrusive to that environment. On top of not leaving a mess, it's also very good karma to go ahead and clean up after the messes of others. The actions of some still represent all of us, so if we're able to clean up the impact of less ethical van lifers, it's going to reflect better on all of us and keeps all of these sites free for us to use. Probably my least favorite urban camping option is street parking, just because I worry about fender benders and there's also usually a lot of noise. But if you get desperate enough, you may find yourself in a situation where you need to find this. So here's my 3 top tips on how to find street parking. My first is look for your people. If you see a street that's full of van lifers and sometimes even RVs, chances are that you're fine to camp there for the night. People aren't going to stay somewhere if they're constantly getting woken up in the middle of the night and kicked out. So if you see a bunch of people there, you're probably safe to stay there too. Number 2, you can park in neighborhoods, but it is essential to get there late, leave early, and also never repeat a spot. Most of the time, no one's gonna care or notice if you're staying there for a night, but if someone's paying thousands of dollars in rent each month and they see a boondocker just sitting in one spot of their neighborhood for weeks on end, they're probably gonna call someone on you. And my third tip on urban street camping, there are enough people living this way by now that if you do a quick Google search in the specific area that you're in, there will usually be some kind of blog thread or something of that nature recommending certain streets that they think van lifers can park on. Sounds like common knowledge, but with all the fancy apps we have now and all that jazz, sometimes we forget that a quick Google search is sometimes the easiest way to find this information. Alright, enough about urban camping. Let's talk about my favorite form of free camping, and that is dispersed land camping. Full disclosure, a lot of times these dispersed sites don't have running water, bathrooms, electricity, phone service, or even paved roads to get there. Always check the conditions of the roads that you need to access these places, especially if, like me, you don't have a four-wheel drive vehicle. Make sure that you don't end up stranded somewhere where you don't have phone service. Here in the US, the majority of dispersed land camping is run by the BLM, which is Bureau of Land Management. There's also land run by the Forest Land Service. This spot right here is an example of some of the dispersed camping I'm talking about. This is gorgeous, it's free, and it was pretty easy to get to. But I'm gonna show you just how I go about finding sites like this. Pretty much any video you watch on this topic is going to tell you this, and that's because it's true. Use the apps that are available to you. I only really use 2 apps, but here's a list of other apps that you can look into if you're interested. But for now, I'll go ahead and just show you how I use these 2 apps to find my sites. The main app I use is called the Dirt app. And the reason I use this one most is I found it often has the most options for me. On top of that, it also has a way to narrow down your searches so you're not having to sift through a bunch of options that aren't even relevant to you. For instance, if you can't live without a bathroom, you can search just options that have bathrooms. If you're like me and you hate paying for campsites, you can opt to just be shown the free campsites, which is what I do all the time. A few things to look out for if you're using this app for the first time. 1, make sure that your site is a drive-in site. A lot of the sites are just walk-in sites, which basically means you park and then you backpack up to the site, camp at the site, and then come back. Obviously, this doesn't work for a van lifer who's wanting to just be able to pull into the site and make camp there for the night. I had to learn the hard way the difference between a drive-in site and a walk-in site, so make sure you check that before you go. Secondly, if there's a site on there that looks amazing but it has no reviews, I wouldn't rely on it. Honestly, about 50% of the time that I check out a campsite that has no recent reviews, like within the last year, they end up being blocked by private property gates or just not existing at all. So it's totally fine to go check those out, but just keep your expectations low if they have no recent reviews. And if you do end up getting there and it's blocked or something like that, be a good person and be the one that leaves the review saying, "Hey, this isn't a real option." The second app I use is the Gaia app. And the Gaia app is pretty special because it uses map layering, and the specific map layer that you're going to be looking for is US public lands. And once you have this layer applied, you're going to be looking for all the green and yellow areas. These areas are typically free for you to stay in. Though I would encourage you, if you can, to check with local park rangers, as well as even calling up Bureau of Land Management. There are people who this is their job. It is their job to help preserve these lands and also their job to help people use them. So take advantage of that. Before I go on to the next and final category, I have to say, please, please, please educate yourself on leave no trace ethics and principles. Have a plan on how you're going to dispose of your waste properly when you're out in these locations so that we can keep them beautiful for people to come back to year after year. There's been many times where I've gotten to dispersed campsites and there's glass all over the ground or toilet paper that's been dug up because someone just put it right under the dirt and figured that would be enough. I think sometimes researching leave no trace and sustainability ethics outdoors can be kind of overwhelming to people, so I certainly have made my own mistakes over the years, but if you guys do want me to make a whole video just based on that topic, I'd definitely be willing to do so, actually excited to do so. So if that's something you want, just leave it in the comments below and I'll definitely be reading those. Alright, we finally made it to category 3, which is other unique camping / parking options I've found over the years. The first is going to be trailheads. The only time I'll really utilize a trailhead to camp is if I'm actually hiking that trail the next day. So I'll get there maybe around 10 or 11, camp, and then in the morning I'll wake up, hike, get back in the van, and then leave. I try not to camp at these if I'm not using the trail at all, just because with the outdoors becoming more and more popular, I worry that I would take the spot of someone that actually wanted to utilize that space for what it was intended for, and not for people that are just boondocking and trying to get a free space of earth for the night to park their vehicle. Obviously, this is also one of those categories where some trailheads are going to be great. Other trailheads, like if you're in a national park, you can't just camp at the trailhead of any trail you want to. You're going to get caught, and if you don't get caught, it's still bad. The next one I have for you is off-season ski resorts. And this one I didn't know about until very recently. I'm finding that a lot of ski resorts in the summer months open up lots for people to camp in overnight. The last one I stayed at, I got some footage while it was really spooky outside, and you can't tell, but this is actually the same location from this shot to this shot. It was actually a pretty beautiful location. I ended up taking a walk a little bit away from the parking lot, setting up my yoga mat, watching the sun go down over some beautiful mountains. So if it's summer season and there's ski resorts around you, maybe just do a little bit of quick research and see if they have any options for you. My third unique option is rest stops. This might seem fairly obvious, but I think sometimes people forget how many of these exist, and the fact that they have bathrooms so that in the morning you can just use the restroom and don't have to worry about that aspect of things. A few drawbacks with these: one, they can be extremely loud if they're right by the highway, but that's not all of them. I found some that are very quiet. The second drawback is that they can be sketchy depending on the area that you're in, so just use your best judgment. If you have a gut feeling, get on out of there. And last but not least, do not be afraid to ask locals what their favorite free camping options are. Now, you have to be careful who you ask because some people don't know. If you walk into a climbing gym, you're gonna find someone who knows. So find the dirtbags and you'll find the people that know the best free camping. It is true though, some of the best camping I found in Montana were secret climbing crags that only the locals knew about. The locals seem to always know about those hidden gyms that aren't anywhere online, aren't on any of the apps, and it just can't hurt to ask. The worst you could get is like, I don't know, and maybe a weird stare, but in my opinion, that's worth it for all the times that they actually have had answers that have been really helpful. And I think that about wraps up the free tips that I wanted to share with you guys in this video. If I just saved you $12,000 a year on camping, consider going and supporting this channel over on my Patreon. I'll also be posting in written form everything that I just went over in this video over on there. So if you want to just have it all in one spot, that's where you can find it. But otherwise, you can support this content for free by clicking the subscribe button down below. Say hi in the comments. I always love to interact with you all. And big thank you to all the current patrons who are supporting the channel. All 6 of you must believe in me or something, and that means a lot. Let me know if there's any specific videos that you want covered, but otherwise, I'll just see you in the next post. Bye!
Anything good?
Sometimes, we'll see. I'm making a video about free camping.
Oh.
Yeah.
Good, have fun.
Thanks.